permission. So, hello everyone, and my name is Quatez Scott. I am the intercultural specialist who is responsible for overseeing the Bolinga Black Cultural Resources Center here at Wright State University. As part of what we like to do within the Bolinga Center is not only provide services to students, but also to our faculty and staff as well. Thus, we have established the monthly Bolinga Faculty and Staff Development Series. And this month here, as we round out March, we are focusing on the conversation of Black fatigue. And I'm so honored to have two of our distinguished and esteemed professors here on campus who are going to be delivering this very important address. So the first person I'm going to go ahead and introduce is Dr. Janeece Warfield. Dr. Warfield is a Wright State University School of Professional Psychology professor and licensed clinical psychologist. She received her doctoral degree from Wright State University School of Professional Psychology and a postdoctoral specialization in pediatric psychology from Georgetown University Hospital Child Development Center. She is the former director of WSU's doctoral internship program, principal investigator of WSU's Moms to Be program, director of the Center for Child and Adolescent Violence Prevention, and director of Early Childhood Services. She specializes in therapeutic services and assessment with infants and children, developmental disabilities, and children with chronic illness. She also has expertise in play therapy, violence prevention, trauma, and multicultural diversity training. She is a member of the American Psychological Association, the Association of Black Psychologists, and the Dayton Area Psychological Association. In addition, she has held leadership and membership roles in other professional organizations such as the Association of Play Therapy and the Association of Infant Mental Health Ohio. Dr. Warfield is also a master trainer for APA's Adult and Children Together Raising Safe Kids program. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back because I read all of that for the first time just straight through. And then we also have Dr. Jackson. Dr. LaTrelle Jackson is a professor, clinically certified forensic counselor, board certified clinical psychologist, and the interim dean at Wright State University's School of Professional Psychology and the College of Health, Education, and Human Services. She earned the distinction of diplomat in clinical psychology in 2018. In 2017, Dr. Jackson served as WSU Interim Associate Vice President for Student Affairs while maintaining her faculty role in the SOPP program. Prior to joining the faculty at WSU, she worked at Regent University where she was an associate professor, the director of clinical training, the director of the Psychological Services Center, the special assistant to the vice president for student services, and the executive vice president for academic affairs. She earned a bachelor's degree in Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, Master of Arts in Rehabilitation Counseling, and a doctorate in counseling psychology from the University of Georgia. Go Dogs! Her American Psychological Association accredited internship was completed at Michigan State University. Go Blue! Dr. Jackson's professional appointments include working at Penn State University and the University of Florida. She has held academic appointments with the Department of Rehabilitation, Counseling, African American Studies, Counselor Education, and Counseling Psychology at these institutions. Committed to integrated wellness, community empowerment, and moral leadership, Dr. Jackson has engaged in a variety of regional academic, business, and civic endeavors in addition to national service in the Division 35 Society for the Psychology of Women and Division 36 Society for the Psychology of Religion and Spirituality of the American Psychological Association. Everyone, these are very two great folks that, one, I need to learn a lot more from. But everyone, please welcome to the virtual stage Drs. Warfield and Dr. Jackson.
Thank you so much, Cortez, for that nice introduction. And I want to say good afternoon, everyone. I'm suffering from a little bit of a cold, so hopefully I'm not going to be coughing too much. But we are happy to be here this afternoon to discuss Conquering Black Fatigue, which is based off of Mary Frances Winter's book, Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit. Before we get started, let me just do a quick couple of reminders. Just want to make sure that everyone knows where your chat feature is. It's over there to the right side, should be of your screen with a little bubble. So we'll be asking you to participate by using your chat function today, or you can also use your reaction function, which has the ability for you to raise your hand. So just wanted to make sure that everyone knows where those things are before we begin. Our objectives today are participants will define what Black fatigue means to them. And number two, participants will have at least 3 tools that they can use to replenish and engage in reparative care from Black fatigue. When we're discussing certain topics as these, sometimes they can be emotionally charged. And so it's important to make sure that we have some working agreements. So it's our hope this afternoon that you will hold a reflective and learning stance, that you'll stay present and engaged, that you'll expect and accept non-closure, because we know that we're not going to be able to solve the problems with Black fatigue, and then that you'll honor and respect shared perspectives. We want to get started this afternoon with a reflection activity, and we want to ask you, what does living while Black mean to you? Again, I'm going to say that. What does living while Black mean to you? So we want you to reflect on what images, feelings, experiences, and thoughts come to mind when you hear this statement. So take maybe a second just to kind of reflect on what does that mean to you? And then, if you wouldn't mind, please share your reflections in the chat. Okay, so we'll take a couple minutes to do this. So just, again, think about what does living while Black mean to you? Dr. Jackson, I'll ask if you see any responses in the chat, maybe if you could read any. Okay. Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I was asked, I mentioned that I put in the chat for everyone to get some paper and a pen because it will be needed as we go through the program. So that just wanted to call attention to that in the chat as a request. Make sure you get some paper and pencil so we can use that. Thanks.
Okay, so I see something saying staying vigilant. So living while Black means staying vigilant. Oh, Dr. Carter, yours left really quick. Dr. Jackson, could you read hers for me?
Yes, living while Black means the inability to separate my Blackness from my womanhood, and it means being an expert at navigating microaggressions.
Excellent, great. I saw something that Cortez had put in there as well, but it went away.
The Wright State group also said connection. It means connection for them.
Good, okay. Let's see if we can take one more and then I'll move on.
Remembering the good and the pain.
Excellent, thank you.
That. Mm-hmm.
Those are all good reflections. And one of the things that Mary Frances Winters states is, she says, living while Black embraces the myriad of unjust and inequitable experiences that are relentless and too often lead to violence against Black people. And let's look at this next slide, which I really think really depicts that particular representation. So just look at these images for a second and see what kind of thoughts come to your mind. I'll just let you take a second to look at these images. And as so eloquently coined from Mary Frances Winters, she says, we live in a world that for centuries has dehumanized, ostracized, murdered, and otherwise violated Black and brown people's human rights. The intergenerational fatigue that comes from enduring structural racism literally makes you sick. The impact of racism takes a toll on our physical and mental health. Let's look at this next slide, where we have a variety of different statistics that are coming from Families USA, which is a national nonpartisan voice for healthcare consumers. And these are just some of the major health disparities that occur between Black and white people. And as I read these, we would like you to respond in the chat if you can as to how that statistic may apply to you or to someone that you know. And you can just reply with a Y for yes, or again, you can type yes. So as I read these, again, think about if these apply to you or someone you know. Black people are 44% more likely to die from a stroke. Black people are 20% more likely to have asthma and 3 times more likely to die from it than whites. Black people are 25% more likely to die from heart disease. Black women are 40% more likely to die from breast cancer. Black men are 30% more likely, and Black women 60% more likely to be diagnosed with high blood pressure. Black men are 1.3 times likely to be diagnosed with colon cancer. Black people are 20% more likely to report psychological distress. Black people will live an average about 3 fewer years than a white person with the same income. Black children are 61% more likely to attempt suicide as high schoolers as a result of depression. And lastly, Black infants have 2.2 times higher in infant mortality rates, regardless of their SES of the mother. So again, I can't see the chat, but Dr. Jackson, do you see a lot of yeses in there? No? Okay. So I see some that have popped up. But again, one of the things that we know, in turn, health disparities result in lower life expectancies for Black people than any other group. You'll now hear from Dr. Jackson.
Thank you. After I said no, it popped up. So my chat was a little delayed. So we'll work together with our technology. So I saw lots of affirmation in terms of how do you resonate with those statistics. We're going to start right now looking at definitions so we can have a common understanding of what actually are we conceptualizing. How do we even look at the prospect of experiencing, living, overcoming, and dealing with Black fatigue? Definition, very helpful definition that was provided by Dr. Warfield in combination with the Winters book, and I think the following information on the next slide also will be helpful. Black fatigue is the repeated variations of stress that result in extreme exhaustion and cause mental, physical, and spiritual maladies that are passed down from generation to generation. It is a deeply embedded fatigue that takes inordinate amounts of energy to overcome Herculean efforts to sustain an optimistic outlook and enormous amounts of faith to believe what we state we shall overcome someday. When we break down what stress means, it is the erosion on our being. That's the totality of who we are as we engage with our environment. And a term that's often used is stress. So let's start there. Stress is the body's reaction to a change or challenge that requires a physical, mental, or emotional adjustment and or response. Stress can come from any situation or thought that makes you frustrated, angry, nervous, or anxious. Things or situations which cause stress are known as stressors. Now, I want to be clear. Stress is a natural part of life and is necessary for growth in life, but too much stress can cause problems. Telemarketer, sorry about that. Repeated variations. Oh, sorry.
We go back.
No, my other computer backed up. Moving forward, let's unpack the specifics. What I've noticed that people often toss around the term stress, but not realizing that they're very different forms of stress. One is good, one is not good. So stress is being overwhelmed or unable to cope with mental or physical, emotional pressure. However, to break it down, distress versus eustress. Stress is defined as resources are less than the demands on our system. So if you envision the challenges of your life being at this level and your resourcing, meaning I'm getting sleep, good nutrition, no challenges in the day, loving support system. If that stress comes at you at this level and your resources are here, you're thriving, you're productive. That's when you feel like I'm on point. I got tons of my to-do items accomplished. I am in my zone. That is eustress. Distress is when your resources are down. I'm not getting enough sleep. Problems at home with relationships. My job is not going like I want. I can't get the promotion I want. Whatever is grinding you down, your resources are down and the demand on your system is higher. That's when you slip into distress. And that's what people often discuss in terms of stress and refer to distress. The goal in life is to get to a place of eustress, building up your resources so that you can manage the challenges that you're facing successfully. When that doesn't work out, you can slide into something called burnout. It's when we feel empty, mentally exhausted, unmotivated, and beyond caring. It's a state of mental and physical exhaustion that can zap the joy out of your career, friendships, and family interactions. Compassion fatigue, also known as secondary traumatic stress, is when emotional and/or physical exhaustion leads to a diminished ability to empathize or even feel compassion for others. And as referenced earlier, secondary traumatic stress is the emotional duress that results when an individual hears about firsthand trauma of others. So now we're going to move into an exam or a quiz, a self-paced quiz that Dr. Warfield will lead you through. This is what we were referencing. Get a piece of paper and a pen or pencil so you can jot down your responses and do an assessment, a personal assessment of where are you on that continuum that we talked about, eustress versus distress.
So please, if you've not gotten a sheet of paper out, please get one. And then once you have your paper, if you would number it from 1 through 10. Does everybody have a piece of paper and numbered their papers from 1 to 10? All right. So this is going to be, I'm going to read the responses, and we want you to give some thought to in the last month, how often have you felt these ways? And you're going to respond by a 0 for never, 1 for almost never, 2 for sometimes, 3 fairly often, and 4 will be very often. So number 1, in the last month, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly? Number 2, how often have you felt you were unable to control the important things in your life? Number 3, how often have you felt nervous and stressed? Number 4, how often have you felt unsure about your ability to handle your personal problems? Number 5, how often have you felt that things weren't going your way? Number 6, how often have you found that you could not cope with all the things that you had to do? Number 7, how often have you been unable to control irritations in your life? Number 8, how often have you felt that you weren't on top of things? Number 9, how often have you been angered because of things that were outside of your control? Number 10, how often have you felt difficulties were piling up so high that you could not overcome them? We want you to now add your score from your numbers 1 through 10 to get a total score. Everybody have a score? Okay, so now let's see what your scores mean. All right, so this is the stress quiz interpretation. If you had a score from 0 to 10, you're below average in your stress. So congratulations, you seem to be handling life stressors well at the moment. If you had a score from 11 to 14, that's average. And so your life is far from stress-free. So it's time to start to learn how to reduce your stress to healthier levels. A score of 15 to 18 is medium high. And you may not realize how much stress is really affecting your mood, your productivity, and your relationships. And unfortunately, if you had a score of 19 or higher, you're experiencing a very high level of stress. And the higher your score, the more damage stress is doing to your mind, your body, and your behavior. Bring it back over to Dr. Jackson.
Before we get into the next part of building on your score, let's process a little bit. We got a few minutes about what is it that surprised you, or did anything surprise you in your score on how you did on this test? Was it confirming what you thought, or did you get a wake-up call just now like, ooh, I thought I was in the zone, but maybe I'm not quite where I thought? And feel free to not just keep it in the chat. We have a moment that you can share verbally as well. So just unmute yourself and share your thoughts about what was it like to take that quiz and what did you learn?
I'll start off. Oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Dr. Carter.
I was just gonna say, it just confirmed what I already knew, but I'm glad you didn't ask us to share our score in the chat.
You wouldn't do that. It's
Uh,
your own personal things. But you said it confirms what you already know.
yes, so I'm looking forward to the next slide that you had on reparative methods.
Great. How about, and Cortez, what were you going to say?
Yeah, along similar lines. Sometimes, like even as I was going through even as I was going through, I was also thinking about like the number of things that like we think are beyond our control, but some of those stressors are the things that we quite frankly like have to do, and some of them are happening like simultaneously. So yeah, I was also glad though that we weren't asked to share the number out loud.
Great. I think, one of the things and then one of the reasons that we are wanting to give you this is for you just to have a baseline. Because again, when we think about conquering Black fatigue, we are in situations where we're stressed all the time. And so to be mindful of where your stress level is and let this almost be a wake-up call to say, what do I need to do to again begin to repair? And so I think, again, it's helpful not to necessarily make an alarm for yourself, but again, like I'm saying, a wake-up call so then you can know, how do I repair and how do I take care of myself so I'm not letting stress then, wear me down. And so then again, it affecting your mental as well as your physical health. Dr. Jackson.
And when we think about the different zones in our life that actually may challenge us, it's good to be able to break it down. That's why I really like the way the quiz is framed, because your home environment may pose more stress for you than maybe your work environment. So it's good to kind of zone in as to which area do I really need to attend to so that I can get from a place of distress to eustress. All right, so let's start talking about ways now that we have an assessment of where are our challenging areas and how we can maybe address those and move forward to action after a time of reflection. So let's talk a little bit about what does reparative care mean to you? What replenishes you? When it's time to rejuvenate, you made it through Friday, you got into the weekend, got that Friday feeling when like, whoa, I made it. Hallelujah. Okay, now what are you doing so that you're in a different place on Monday than you went into the weekend? We can talk. You can weigh in. I see we have a comment in the chat. Someone literally asked me 2 days ago how I am doing. I responded that it depended on what part of my life they had a question about. Very good. Yep, you're already on top of it, Cortez. What are some things you do to replenish yourself?
I know for myself, I like to crochet, although it's so relaxing that by the time I do it on Friday night, I'm so tired that I only get 1 or 2 stitches in and I'm out. But anyway, that's one of the things that helps me.
Well, one thing that I noticed in my reflection is that some things I used to do and I enjoyed that did replenish me don't appeal to me right now. So we have to contextualize our development and where we are at this stage of our life. I might have wanted to go dancing at the club. I might have wanted to go to a step show. I might have wanted to do a variety of things in the community. But now that doesn't appeal to me as much as curling up with a good Netflix movie on my favorite spot on the sofa with a blanket and a hot cup of hot chocolate or whatever. So you have to say, what replenishes me now? Do a refresh like you do on your computer. Push the button, update, and kind of say, for this stage, maybe some things may be attractive and it's time for you to be adventurous and explore. Dr. Carter, you had something you were going to say?
Yeah, I think that was very important. The piece about what helps changing over time. So like now for the last month I've been playing this game on my phone, Best Fiends,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is really like addictive. So like I play that, but it's very calming. And then also I just watched Lizzo's Big Girls, like the entire show, because it was also about like body, like body positivity and like empowerment. So I think that that helped me. So it's also what I watch as well.
That's true.
So
Mhm.
And also having variety. I think we live in an exciting time and we have privilege to be able to pick and choose. 50 years ago, there was no Netflix. There was no programming beyond, say, the Jeffersons and All in the Family and what have you. And you were happy to get that, to see Good Times. Even though they had a lot of hard times and good times, we were glad to be able to see Good Times and connect with Florida Evans and her crew. But now we have a variety of things that can replenish us. I know I recently found on TV Plus, they have something called Dry Comedy Bar. I think it's on channel 1334. I've never been a big comedy person, but I have cracked my side laughing on Friday nights. It's date night TV for myself. Just to see a panel of different comedians, one after the other, and just take you to a different place so that it does feel like a weekend. It's important to be able to end a week and not have it seamlessly go from one week to the next, whether it's work or home. We have to have some reparative time. So let's talk about how can we combat fatigue? How can we organize our life in such a way that we can address it? The goal of this is not to tell you how to wipe it out. It's going to be there. It's just how you interact with your environment to be able to address it positively so that it doesn't have adverse impact. The first way, we're going to talk about some strategies and seeing what approach you even have so that you can align that with the ultimate goal you hope to achieve. We often talk about self-care, and that's what we need to update as well. Self-care for you 10 years ago may not be the right answer for you right now, and the need is to be adventurous and try new things and see if it sticks. And then the role and the power of affirmations, we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So the first is reframing our restorative practices and examining some strategies that will help us to get the right framework for moving forward in this area. So I'm offering 6 that are more general. This is just good health and wellness for any human being to consider to rejuvenate, replenish, and get back to that supple place of living. So through reflection and experimentation, which I just mentioned, update your list of enjoyable activities. They often change as we age. Number 2, extend yourself to others. The reward of altruism is tangible, and it's the framework of lifting others as we rise. We often think of obligatory, situations. Oh, I haven't called my parents in a week or two, so let me reach out and see how they're doing. That's good, but there's also this expectation families should check on each other. That's a schema that we have in many cultural groups. But to extend yourself from a place of choice, who is it you haven't talked to in a while that does lift you up, make you laugh, You feel you can pick up where you left off and no time has been in between. How often have you been checking in with those people, the inner support system? If there was a commitment, I need to check on the lady that moved down the street. I haven't reached out to her yet and welcomed them to the neighborhood. This might be a way that you can do it, extending yourself in a way that is unique, helpful. It will benefit both of you because you're building a sense of community. Number 3, set aside time to be and not just do. Clearly, we are with the privilege of valuing education. Being in higher education, we often have something called delayed gratification. Sometimes delayed gratification gets deferred so long, it's denied gratification because the window is passed and you're moving on to new projects. So stopping a while and just saying, no, I am not about performing between 6 and 8 p.m. That's the time when I need to rejuvenate. I have to replenish. I have to just be. I need to zone out, not look at the to-do list, not feel tasked to accomplish anything, but being alone with my thoughts so that I can reflect on all that I had happen to me this day. Who said something that hit me wrong that I just tucked away? What bright moment did I see that I would not have noticed if I was not so attentive? Let me pat myself on the back for being intentional in those relationships or those interactions. So I got that blessing. I got that good nugget to say, oh, if I was in a different place, I wouldn't have caught that. That's a treasure now. I got a gift from that connection. So taking time just to be, reflecting on quotes that maybe your ancestors, your grandma, your granddaddy told you, whatever, and you're like, oh, that's living in action. Let me ponder, how did they have the insight at that time to experience that? How can I advance that in my own life? Those reflective pieces, if you don't create space for them, you will find days, weeks, months go by, and you have not built the relationship with yourself and start growing from that inner place instead of being an outstanding performer. We can perform well, that's how we got where we are. But we may need a little bit of extra effort to learn how to be again, because that's not something society encourages. We don't have a lot of just be yourself, sit with yourself, reflect on what you're going through, the changes you're making. Nature does it, but we don't as humans. We have a practice of pushing it down and looking at valuing change. How can I become a better person? Well, let's also acknowledge what you're doing great right now. Let's acknowledge that you have had a journey to even get here as you envision how you want to get further. Validate that process. Number 4, live life from a place of moderation and not restriction. Balance fosters harmony and peace. I've seen many approaches as restrictive. I'm on a new eating plan, so I can't have any white sugar. I can't have any white anything, bread, potatoes, just cut it out. Okay, well, that's fine. You made a decision. But does that really speak to when that potato chip comes right in front of you and you know you want to grab that potato chip or that mashed potatoes or whatever? Is it possible to have, a few bites of something? This is just a food example, versus saying, let me cut it out. How about balance? I don't like exercise. Okay, well, instead of saying forget it, throw it all out, can you do 5 minutes a day? Something to keep active, keep the blood flowing so it can nourish all of your body parts. I don't want to get on the treadmill in the gym and pay for something I may or may not do. Okay, well, maybe that neighbor that you went down the street to introduce yourself to, maybe they like to walk and you can walk down to their house and walk back. Now you've been active. So again, moderation. You don't have to go overboard, but it should be enough that you feel good at the end of it, that you don't feel deprived, whatever it is that you might have been saying, I can't do this. That kind of gives the sense of a loss of control. I can't, I'm restricted, I'm blocked. I can't do this. Well, if it was actually something that you can enjoy in moderation, consider that. Anchor your framework from a place of gratitude and optimism. Perspective shifting can be a great mood booster. When you start the day being grateful, pausing that extra 10 minutes before you get up, take your shower, eat breakfast, get your coffee, whatever, just to say, I am grateful. I have another day that I can make a positive impact in others' lives or move forward in my goals. Thank you. universe, God, wherever your spiritual center is, thank you for another day of opportunity. That simple framework shifts you from what I've got to do to now I have an opportunity to do. And your whole outlook is different. I get the chance to connect with my child in a different way. I get to deepen my relationship with my coworkers. I get the chance to work with my mentee today in a unique way. And I'm growing as my mentee is growing as well. So feeling like I get the opportunity is a very different framework than I've got to do these 10 things today. One feels like drudgery and compliance and obligation, and the other has a positive framework that really creates a wonderful legacy of daily living, not existing. Number 6, limit time with those who emanate negative energy and surround yourself with those who radiate positive energy. And the way I envision this is like a bank account. So when people make positive connections with you, they're making deposits into your bank account. That's wonderful. But when you are actually with people that are always negative, see the adverse sides of life, that commentary, even though you're thinking we're just talking, those are withdrawals from your bank account. So by the end of the day, if you wonder, why am I so tired? I didn't do much. But if you talk to 6 people that were doom and gloom, you can be the biggest ray of sunshine all day long, but you will have some clouds around you by the end of the day because you're depleted. You don't have anything else left. Because check, I've given you a little bit out of my account. I've given you a little bit of me. Again, 2 years going in, I feel it. It's transforming me. Even if you're not issuing words that are in that vein, it's a different framework. And your bank account is gradually getting depleted. I have a question in the chat. What if you are the negative person? How do you work to repair relationships with yourself and others? And it can be a choice. To answer your question, you can do that. You focus on things like we're talking about later with affirmations, connecting with people who actually have a natural optimism and positive outlook can help you. If you give them permission to give you feedback along the way, you can change your narrative. Once you change what you say and how you think, you will change who you are. It takes time, but with effort, you can actually have a different outlook. You don't have to be the negative person anymore. You have the power. So let's move a little bit deeper into this reflection to say, what are some strategies for rejuvenating from a culturally integrated standpoint? And that's a different way to look at it. Number 1, attend to the number, frequency, and scope of the micro and macro cultural assaults you endure on a daily basis. Consider those as dents in your being that need to be smoothed out, buffed, or wiped away. They need repair. You can be resilient, and we hope we are all fostering a sense of resilience and acknowledging that things will happen. If we don't attend to that, our car, which is our body, our physical, emotional, spiritual well-being, have these little dents. A few, you got some character, but when you get big old smashes and scrape, knocked off, you need to attend to that, because you're the same way your car would be dented and driving around and people look at it like, oh my goodness, they need to get to a body shop to take care of that. Your spirit has been impacted. And so you want to start saying, I need to quantify, I need to validate. I've been through some things this week. This person said this person disrespected me in this way. How can I address this proactively? Because otherwise it can harbor within you. And like cancer, it will grow. And you don't even necessarily have it as a direct attribution because it's cumulative. And the next thing, and the next thing. And then one person can say one thing, boom, now you got fury. So it's better to take care of it along the way and not even give it the chance that it can accumulate. Let's look at, if you have questions, let me know. I don't see any other comments in the chat. Oh, hang on. Giving oneself grace and recognizing they are negative is a powerful first step. That's true. That's acknowledgement. That's a beautiful thing. It's a powerful step, foundational. I referenced the second one earlier. Create an inner circle of supporters. This can be your family, your friends, neighbors, or your partners who you can trust to be real. No pretense is needed. You are not on when you're with these people. These are your people that you're authentic with, that can give you the feedback, the encouragement. They won't just feed you a line. There's something called the buffering hypothesis. And that's if you have one person that you can actually be honest with and get support from, you can deflect 78% of the stressors that have a direct link to physical impact, illness, et cetera, et cetera. All you need is one. If it can negate 78% of the physical maladies that are waiting for you, what if you get 2 or 3? You're awesome. You're in a zone. But if you don't have that one, you're vulnerable. And they definitely can creep up on you. And when you find out you have chronic health conditions or mental challenges, all of those things can be attributed to how much support do you have? When something goes wrong, do you have someone to turn to? When it's time for you to celebrate, do you have someone with you then? Who is on team your name, whatever your name is? Team Jackson. Who are my Team Jackson folks? My cheerleaders, my anchors. And if I can't come up with one person, you are vulnerable for the adverse effects of distress. And we don't want that. We want you to be buffered. And that could be a commitment. That could be a goal of working through that this year. Is to say, how can I move forward in building my repertoire? Any questions about that? Yeah, buffering hypothesis has been around a long time. So if it's still valid, it's time for us to recognize it's an evidence-based practice. Get some more buffers around you. Learn your limit for inputs and be respectful of that. Whether this is home discussions, some people don't like to talk about politics. They may have very different views in their families about politics. It may be another domain at work. But know what your limit is. If you have done all of that being, reflection, assessing who are the negative and the positive people in your life so that you can adjust, this is where you put it in action. Because once you realize I'm about at my limit, let me extract myself from this conversation. Let me extract myself from this connection with this group. I can do it tomorrow, but I can't do it today because I already had so many macro or microaggressions or challenges to my day that I don't need to go there. So validating that process is really helpful to know what is my limit. And it will change day to day because, again, we talked about if the resources are here and your challenges are here, you're going to have some struggle. The goal is to make sure you're down here with the challenges and your resources being up. The next is find a target for your cultural wisdom. There is value in ensuring that your wisdom, which are your life experiences plus knowledge, does not end with you. Transcendence can be achieved with children, mentees, early career professionals, the list goes on and on. But finding a person or a group that you want to give all that you've learned, all the wisdom, all the knowledge, all the tips, if you will, for being successful in this world. Having some entity that you can give that to allows you to be, if you want to even go strong enough to say immortal, your mortality is not the same. You have now passed it on in a transcendent way so that it does not go with you. That is powerful. How many people in your inner circle have you imparted your wisdom to? And if it's been a while, that would be a cultural way for you to re-energize and keep our community vibrant and strong by sharing what you know and giving that as a gift. Then we get to identify and seize cultural celebration opportunities. Joy can come in small and big ways. So as you look at all of the range of lists that we have in our calendar year, everything from National Donut Day to, Christmas, holidays that are commercialized, There's a single parent day. I mean, just a variety, Mother's Day. Find what cultural group you identify with. And instead of saying, oh, okay, check the box. No, stop for a minute. Do something that makes you feel celebratory about having that cultural identification. Um, Whether it's grandparents, mother, father's day, whatever. Take a minute and just say, I'm very proud of myself because this is something that I do unique. Not everybody is tasked to do these things. And find ways that you can, it doesn't have to be extravagant, 10, 15 minutes, doing a treat for yourself, or making sure that you plan for the big things. Maybe take that cruise. I was good this year. My children have done this and I was instrumental. You had an accomplishment at work. I achieved a promotion. It can be small or big, but if you don't make it culturally congruent that I need to affirm, validate, celebrate, you can live a very productive life, but it won't be a joyful life because you haven't made time for the joy to flow. It's stifled. And going back to number 3, surround yourself with cultural reminders of your innate value. Books, art, family photos, whatever represents your cultural framework. Put it all around you so that it is a natural way to put you in a positive light. Take your energy into a place of replenishing just by being there. So if family is it for you and it's in your heart, do you have any pictures around of your family? Get some pictures somewhere so that you can look over at cousin such and such and remember the memory of such and such. Back when I was growing up, such and such. That is replenishing in and of itself. And so you want your space to facilitate some of this nurturance. And it's without effort. Once you set it up, it's there. You can replenish it, you can modify it and change it. But now your environment is conducive to you actually getting to that place of feeling anchored and celebrated just in being who you are. And you will draw strength from that. Any questions or comments? Maybe sharing how some of you might have done some of this rejuvenation already, whether it's your workplace or your home. How does it sound that you can maybe modify your environment to be culturally affirming?
Well, a question that I wrote down is what are practical steps to attend to oneself when this isn't when this may possibly be something that hasn't been learned. And I'll just speak like from my own previous experiences, but as you all talked about, trauma is definitely passed down from generation to generation, and I think oftentimes like a lot of folks just push past certain things and don't necessarily learned like we learn maladaptive traits really to adapt to things that are going on. So for folks that this may be something that they're doing for the first time, what would you recommend as counselors, psychologists, as some first steps to begin attending to oneself?
Dr. Warfield, did you want to share your thoughts?
I mean, I think the first thing is just recognizing where are the places that you're coming from with that, so that you are open to being able to then to take in the information that you're wanting to make changes. And to write, and as Dr. Jackson already talked about, just kind of like attending to, again, what are you going to do that's going to help to make you feel better? What things bring you joy? As she said, are there people, are there things that you can do? That's how I would begin to answer that question. Dr. Jackson?
I agree. And I think the first is embracing the narrative that change is possible. So as you highlighted, Cortez, about awareness is so central. Once you get awareness, you figure out what can I do? What do I do? These are some strategies to get started. Again, baby steps is the key because that way it can be sustained. If you go for a massive overhaul, it can be so daunting that you put it aside and think, I didn't do that in the last 3 weeks, month, whatever, but it was good. It was good. But the baby steps allow it to be sustained. And if you can incorporate that for at least 3 weeks straight, it can become a habit. And the better that habit forming process is, the more apt you would be to incorporate additional things to continue. That would be my thought, is to create a plan, which we will be doing in a little bit. So thank you for highlighting that as we transition into reframing our nurturing practices.
Brenda,
Self-care. Yes.
I had a comment about that. The question that was asked about the things that are done. Because, so one of the things that I think I've done very recently was develop that group of people or like
Mm-hmm.
person who is a supporter. But then I also lost one of those supporters in doing that because one of the things I think we all should recognize is that not everybody is like capable of being that person. And so like having a conversation, um, with those who are close to you because everybody might like they might be going through their own stuff. And so they might not be prepared to be that supporter that you need them to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So
right. That's why communication is key because you may be expecting more or different things from somebody than they have the capacity to offer. And what do you do then? You adjust. You adjust and say, you're not that person. You can have this role in my life, but I still got that need and I need to still work on how I can get that need fulfilled rather. Good,
And
good.
again, it might be then looking at other ways that you can do that. So again, if it's not through people, is it through readings? Is it through listening to inspirational kinds of things? So, again, looking at what's going to be in your toolkit that you can also use or build your toolkit. So that's the other thing that I would say with that.
Yep, I agree. And support is felt differently by different people in different ways at different times. So making sure you stay close at hand with that. So talking a little bit about, self-care. I think that we will have a chance to hear more specifics now from Dr. Warfield that answer more of what you asked earlier, Cortez.
So one of the things that I really like is this definition of self-care, which says it's the ability to refill and refuel oneself in a healthy way. Just take a minute just to reflect on that words, refill and refuel. Dr. Jackson has provided you with lots of things that might help you to refill and refuel. And so it's a matter of them beginning to select which of those things work for you. And again, what may work for you one day may not work for you another day. So don't easily discount something. Try it again because again, as you said, we can be in different places at different times in reference to our own thoughts. So again, give yourself that opportunity to look at how do you refill and refuel. And when we do that, then we know that we're maintaining life that is rich with meaning and gratification outside of the workplace. And I think that's really crucial. Again, trying to find what are ways that you can use self-care outside of the workplace. And so, what are some of those ways? Well, one is just caring for your body. And with caring for your body, looking at soothing your body, using the whole notion of massage, hugs, or grooming. And if you were just to take your hand for a second and just do some large strokes, just going up on your hand, large strokes, and then do some kneading, little kneading, and just see what that feels like for yourself. And again, this doesn't have to be something that you have to go out and get. You could do it yourself, have your partner do it, but just use and look at how does massage feel for your body, your hands, your feet, your arms. Those kinds of things are ways that, again, you can soothe your body. Resting your body is also important. We know it's important to get as much sleep as you can. Recommendations state that 8 hours of sleep per day is really the benefit, but some of us can't do that. But at the same time, how do you get sleep or how do you get relaxation? Just kick back. Do you come home and before jumping into cooking dinner or whatever you need to do you give yourself 5 or 10 minutes just to go stretch out, to take some breathing kinds of things to get some relaxation? Or how do you fortify the body? How do you again replenish it with food, hydration? We know that again, we should really be drinking lots of water because water needs to be replenished on our bodies. And when water is in our body, it helps our brain to continue to function. Do we use vitamins, exercise, or preventative health care? All those are the kinds of things, of ways that we can care for our body. And then just restoring our body. How do we do that spiritually? If you believe in God, do you go to church and let that be an energy boost for you? Or do you just go into nature and just feel the presence of the earth? How do you use meditation, mindfulness? These are all ways that we care for the body. We can also do experiential types of things like body scanning, which is again then checking in and grounding the physical self by focusing on our five senses. So, what are 5 things that you see? What are 4 things that you hear? What are 3 things that you can smell? What are 2 things that you can touch? And what's 1 thing that you can taste? So just kind of getting in tune to your body. Aromatherapy is another great way of, again, helping to find some calmness or soothing. And so using things like lavender or mint, jasmine, those are some of the scents that are very calming. But perhaps you're really tired one day and you're like, gosh, I need to kind of wake myself up. So then again, citrus kinds of smells, lemon, oranges, those are the kinds of things that wake our senses up. And then yoga. We use yoga for lots of different things. Some people use it as a form of exercise. Others use it for a form of relaxation. But restorative yoga is when you use props in reference to helping your body to relax. And so again, using that as a supportive relaxation. And we're going to give you a reference to restorative yoga that you might be able to use. The other thing is just breathing. And I know you may hear a lot about breathing, but a lot of times when we're anxious or stressed, we engage in fast breathing. And again, that can cause us sometimes to hyperventilate. So we really want to practice in calming breathing. And so for a minute, if you were just to take a deep breath in, and we're going to take a deep breath in, so we do it for 4 counts. So take a deep breath in, then let out for 5 counts. We'll wait for 3 seconds. Take a deep breath in, then let out. That is, again, called calming breathing. Now, if we can kind of do that type of breathing, that's something that will help us. So if we are feeling stressed, take that time to breathe. Breathing allows oxygen to get to our brain. It's something that I do every morning when I'm rushing to get to work. I get in the car, I take that deep breath in, and then slowly let out, just to center and calm myself so I can then get ready to drive. But it really does work. But again, it's something that takes practice. And so again, if we are not used to doing these things when we need them, they're not going to come into effect. So trying to put this into your daily routine is something that's helpful. The other thing we want to bring to your attention is also chair yoga. So we sit at our desk a lot. We carry those tensions from the stresses that we might be facing for the day, possibly for the microaggressions or microassaults that we might be facing. So we encourage you to do some chair yoga, and we provided you some information for where you can get a handout for that. But Dr. Jackson, do I just have time to do one chair yoga? Okay. So if everybody, chair yoga, first of all, is any kind of yoga is not meant to hurt. So if you need to modify any of this, please feel free to do that. But what I want you to do is you're going to sit at the edge of your chair, and I'm going to tell us what we're going to do first, and then I'll have you do it. You're going to sit at the edge of your chair. You're going to look up to the ceiling as you inhale, and then you're going to exhale where you round your back and stretch your arms out through your legs, and you're going to breathe out for 5 seconds. Okay, so everybody now get ready at the edge of your chair. Breathe in. As you're breathing in, you're looking up to the ceiling. And then slowly exhale, pulling your spine in, your abdomen in, breathing out. And one more time, breathe in. Exhale, rounding your shoulders, pulling into your abdomen. Okay, and I don't know how that might have felt for some of you, but these are the different kinds of things that you can do. There are a lot of different yoga positions. So we sent you those so that, again, you'll have that as a reference for yourself. The other thing is we want you just to realize that self-care is a process. So as you leave today, think about how you're going to engage physically in regards to self-care. Are you going to do something that, again, maybe involves exercise? Think about how you're going to maybe think about self-care psychologically. Are you going to do maybe some self-reflections or some journaling? Think about emotionally. Are you going to maybe do some affirmations? Think about spiritually. Are you going to maybe go outside and just look at the clouds or just enjoy the nature or the weather changes? Personally, what are you going to do to learn about yourself? Who are you and what is it that you need? Professionally, how are you going to take time for yourself and to set boundaries? Because we know that a lot of times our stress comes because we don't do a good job of setting boundaries. The 6th thing Dr. Jackson has added to this list, and that's communality. I can't say that word. But again, she talked about how do you find your support systems? How do you connect with people that are going to be positive, that are going to lift you up? Those are the things that we want you to think about. We also are giving you something called the self-care wheel, which these different principles have come from. So it provides you with some different examples. So if you're saying, I'm kind of running blank on what are some other psychological things that I can do for self-care? And then maybe challenge yourself to maybe take and do one of these areas each week. That might be a suggestion that, again, might help you to find that balance and to give you self-care. Dr.
Thank
Jackson,
you,
is there
Dr.
any?
Warfield. Excellent. Yes. And so now looking at the next area, reframing our narratives. Affirmations have power. Words have power. The power can bring you up or it can bring you down. So we want to have words that are coming from us and also surrounding us with people that give us those positive connections as well to build up our inner self. So 10 powerful affirmation words we provided, but I would invite all of you to come up with additional ones on your list. The first is trust. The second is faith. The third is strength, courage, choice, wisdom, support, truth, love, and energy. When you hear these words, they connote a certain positivity, grounding, um, and you want to have that energy in your life to kind of navigate your dialogue, your communication, and you become more congruent with that. So as you think through, as I'm writing letters of reference, drafting reports, connecting with mentees, students, what have you, am I really framing things from a strength-based perspective? Because the same way I can envision that for me, I will start doing that outwardly to others. So I would invite you to add to that list. So you have maybe 3 to 5 go-to affirmation words that will lift you up when you need it most. Next is application. We talked about a lot of things, lots of resources that we're going to give you at the end, and also for you to go through this process today. And I would encourage you to come up with a wellness plan. As I mentioned earlier, moderation, don't go overboard. But if you can come up with 3 specific goals and walk it through this platform, the road to growth is clearer. Ambiguous goals don't help us achieve the goals we want because there's no plan. There's no linear strategy to get there. So for example, we talk about New Year's resolutions, but these resolutions can be made anytime throughout the year. For example, I want you to write down one goal right now that you have. As an example, one would be, I want to be healthier in 2022 than I was in 2021. That's a great goal, but it's ambiguous. The next would be objectives. How you measure that is in the objective phase. I would like to smoke 1 pack a week instead of a pack a day. That's something I can measure. Am I getting closer from 3 packs to 1 pack as I work to eliminate smoking altogether? That would be great. But how am I going to do that? I can be having aspirations all day, but if I don't have a strategy to achieve that objective that helps me achieve the goal, I'm at a loss. So it's very deductive. Goals, objectives, strategies. Okay, if I want to stop smoking, let me get a patch. Let me get a buddy who's also trying to cut smoking out of their lives. And that's a strategy to help me achieve the objective, to help me achieve the goal. The next is a timeline. What's the framework in which you want to achieve the goal you define? And how will you determine success to say, yes, I am healthier in 2022 than I was in 2021? Very simple plan, but this simple wellness plan can lead to very significant long-term positive changes. In closing, there is empirical evidence that reflects the impact of stress. There is clear information that Black individuals experience additional stressors by virtue of their racial background. The likelihood of eradicating racism, prejudice, discrimination, and inequity in our lifetime is slim. Thus, we must find ways to continue the struggle in strategic ways. That way we can prevent all those other terms that we talked about, burnout, compassion fatigue, etc. I believe we are fortunate to live in these modern times. enjoying the fruit of our ancestors' labor. We have privilege, unprecedented privilege as people of color at this day and time. As we navigate our lives, there is still a call to partner our strengths, which are resilience and gratitude, with a keen vision for the future to prevent adverse health effects for us, but also to prepare the next generation for what's ahead. We have a commitment in higher education to the next generation. This should not be exempted from that process. This is something that we need to transcend and impart to our next generation of professionals. We share a vibrant, collective, and brilliant culture. And I believe we can grow anywhere with the right resources. As you see the picture of a plant growing from the little small crevice in the rock, it got what it needed to flourish. All we need to do is to make sure we're equipped with all of our support needs, and we will flourish as well. Dr. Warfield?
In closing, I want to thank you for your attention and time. Thank you, Quadez, for setting this up today. This is just a slide with our presenter information, which will be sent to you. And then we also have our references and resources that you'll also receive that, again, go over some of the things that we spoke about today. So in closing, I guess we can have a few minutes for any questions, or if you want them to work on their plan, Dr. Jackson.
I'm open to either one. If we have questions, we can address those. If people want to share comments and process that, that would be fine as well. And if people want to take a stab at the wellness plan with us as coaches for the next couple of minutes, we have made ourselves available to 1:30 if people would like to connect after the program ends at 1:15, but we wanted to create some space prior to 1:15 in case people had questions or comments that they wanted to share.
I have a question. So of course, not everyone that's inside of this space right now is also a person of color. So in working with, whether or not it be as an educator or just as a colleague, supervisor, but what are some things that you would encourage folks who are non-people of color to do? We'll just go with the route of teaching, actually. So, as educators, what are some things that you would encourage folks to do, or some practices that you would encourage them to either implement or consider when it comes to educating students of color? Because oftentimes, you all, like in that book, goes through a lot of things that are affecting physically and psychologically Black bodies, and I would imagine other people of color as well. But then we also work in a field or are part of a field where sometimes, like, we pride ourselves on making it as difficult as possible and making it hard. So, like, what are some things that you all would recommend for educators to do to build in some de-stressing activities within the curriculum?
I can start first if you want, Dr. Jackson. I think first thing that I would say is just first making time to get to know your students of color. What do you know about them? So again, you're not always taking that avenue where you're wanting them to educate you, but you're wanting to know who are they as they come to the table. So that's the first thing I would say. The second is, I think, providing time for reflection like we did today. If the events come up, like again, the whole thing with George Floyd, how do we take time to kind of talk and process about that? And then it also involves making sure that you, as a person of non-color, have done your own homework. How do we do things like looking at what are our biases? So maybe doing an implicit association test. So again, that you know where you are, so that again, you're not bumping heads and maybe doing micro-assaults or microaggressions. So that's how I would first say that to your question, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Jackson with her thoughts.
Those are excellent suggestions, Dr. Warfield. I think in addition is trying to stay contemporary in their framework, their culture. So when things happen in social media, that's where our students get their news, their information. We tend to get it from the 6 o'clock news as more seasoned folks, but that's not where young folks go. So we want to hear the messages that they're getting so we can incorporate that and address it and culturally situate our connections in ways that are affirming and clear from that perspective as well, and invite them to share. Again, life is very varied. There's no one way to be Black. There's no one way to be white. There's no one way to be any cultural group. So making sure that you have an open forum for diversity of expressions of someone's cultural group and framework. And by having a validating environment for that to occur, it becomes a safe place. And with safety comes the chance to deepen relations and connections. So I think those would be a combination of environmental things as educators we can do, in addition to the interpersonal connection as well. Great question. Any other thoughts or questions? I got a feeling somebody's got one at the tip of their tongue. They just really want to get it out and share it. Or comment.
They could also post it in the chat box.
We have a question for the PowerPoint to be available in addition to the resources that we have forwarded. Cortez, I think you also mentioned you were recording this. So is this a venue that people can access later, or how are you planning to use the recording?
So the Bolinga Center does have a YouTube page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out an email. So I'll send out an evaluation form to all the folks that attended this one in particular. But then in a separate email, like I'll go ahead and I'll send out the rest of the information that was shared here today, as well as the link that goes to this video. But yeah, the Bolinga Center does have a YouTube page, and it has all of our other programs or some of the other recorded programs that we've recorded over the course of this academic year. And of course, this video will be added to that as well. So great question. And yes, we'll send out the PowerPoint as well as some of the other activities that were shared from today's discussion.
And I think, Cortez, you said you're also going to give some reference to, again, this book, correct?
Yes, thank you very much. I need someone to help me remember things. So yes, we do have an electronic version of the book in and of itself. So again, to all the folks who did attend today, I'll go ahead and then I'll share that as well in connection with the evaluation form. I'll send out the electronic version of the book. So thank you, Dr. Warfield.
We are a team. We work together. Well, if there are no other questions, we both thank you for the opportunity to talk with you about this important area. And the key is to replenish. Try to keep replenished and supple.
Yeah, and if folks have, one, thank you too for coming today and then preparing all of this. Folks who are here and folks that are going to be listening to this later on, please recognize that this was completely and 100% volunteer. So I appreciate both Dr. Warfield and Dr. Jackson for not only reading the book in and of itself, but then putting together this entire presentation and then being able to present it to the audience today. So I'm very thankful for you all for going ahead and doing that. As it relates to the Bolinga Center, we do have some upcoming events. So one in particular is next week is the Afro-Latina Spotlight, in which we're going to be collaborating with students over in the Latino Center, as well as Latinos Amigos. And then after that, that's on April 7th of next week, which is going to take place in the Millet Atrium. April 19th, we ask for folks to RSVP to the Kente Stoll Best Awards celebration, which will take place. I'm going to go ahead and then put these links inside of the chat box here. The first one is the evaluation form, but the second one is the Kente Stoll Best Awards. So the Bolinga Excellence in Service and Teaching, but we're going to be we started this inaugural event to begin recognizing Black identified students in particular, not only for their leadership contributions to the campus community, but also to faculty and staff that have been a huge support to our students as well. So that's also going to be a part of that. And then in May, once students are gone, we're not doing it because students are gone, but we are inviting, his name is Dr. Antar Tisha Vakunda, who's going to be here on campus in person, but we're going to have a virtual component of it. But he is currently down at the University of Cincinnati, but a lot of his work focuses on Black student excellence in higher education, more specifically in the STEM fields. So he's going to be here May 4th, which is my birthday. But I'm excited to be here with you all as well at 1 p.m. He's going to be giving an in-person keynote, but he's also going to take time to meet with some folks across campus as well. So if folks have an interest, there's a campus resource component of that, or there's an hour, I think like 45 minutes to an hour, in which he's going to sit down and then talk with campus resource partners about how do we enhance the experiences of our Black identified students through the respective offices. So if you have any questions and would like to meet with somebody who has literally written a book on it, please feel free to come and be here on campus May 4th at 1 p.m. for the keynote, and then be on the lookout for that hour block. But those are the things that we have planned throughout the rest of the academic year for the Bolinga Center. Thank you all for participating here today. Again, thank you to our presenters, and we'll talk to you all the next time.
Have a good day. Be well.
Yeah, let me go ahead and stop the recording.